Let me refresh my stream manager. Oh, yeah. Here it is. Yes. Okay, we're live. So, what's up, everybody? It's me, Dolphin Uppercut Avenger, and this is weekly squad sesh number 2. We're gonna do these weekly squad sessions with the squad in the Discord server. Everybody in the Discord server is invited. This is the second one, and we're going live on Twitch this time. I'm joined with Saji.
Hello.
And Mobtown Tokyo. Playing some guitar. I love it. Anyway, so we in here, and we had a topic request from our favorite future funk vaporwave doobie, Shoji, who's also a member of the Aquatic squad, but is out Christmas shopping tonight. So the question that he sent us to discuss on the stream is, what artistic skills or what artistry is needed to produce compelling vaporwave music?
Just vaporwave?
Yeah, specifically to produce vaporwave music.
Ooh.
Any immediate and emotional response or thoughts?
Well, I'm not specifically versed in vaporwave, but for what I think is just like what I think I would have to do to make something compelling with vaporwave is to be able to have a instrument, be able to use my DAW like an instrument, as in basically being able to use samples and loop them over and over again and get very experimental sounds and just being able to like experiment with your DAW, like kind of like how you would an instrument. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but kind of just really, I can't really explain it, but be able to use your DAW like an instrument.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree with that, because at this, in 2021, DAWs are very much instruments. You have to learn how to use them like you would an instrument. It kind of crosses in between like a production tool and an instrument at times, because you can absolutely play Ableton like an instrument, especially because it's known for its clip launching. People who do finger drumming obviously use Ableton pretty extensively, or launchpad artists. Ableton in this case is as much the instrument as the launchpad, and certainly if it does also beg the question, is the instrument like the trackpad and the keyboard and the launchpad, or is the instrument Ableton? And I personally would say it's all kind of under controllerism and Ableton.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mob?
Well, I only released one Vaporwave album, so I kind of have a little bit more experience with that. I actually had to research Vaporwave in different styles and subgenres of Vaporwave, like Mallsoft or Dreamwave or some of the others. And whenever I actually researched these, you notice these little differences that makes a genre a subgenre. It's just you'll find something that has a little bit more hi-hats, a little bit faster, or you'll find something that has a lot of reverb on a kick or something like that. You kind of figure out these little minor differences that kind of make it its own unique thing. For example, Mallsoft kind of uses a little bit more ambient sound and kind of makes the music into a background sound versus a foreground sound. While Vaporwave makes the melodies and the keys and everything more foreground, while the drums is more of a background thing. So it was really interesting learning these little differences. And you kind of use a lot of different synth pads. That's versus like keys and things like that. It's more of like pad melodies, which is very interesting versus like other genres I've done. Like with let's say lo-fi hip hop, you're using more of a melodies like piano, strings, stuff like that. While vaporwave and Molsoft uses more like pads as the main instrument versus keys and strings and stuff. Though you can actually still throw them in, but it's just more like it makes it into a, like kind of like a softer melody. You don't have it as loud as booming. It's just kind of like very relaxing, very chill. It's like almost like I could kind of put it into word this more. Like if you're dreaming, it's like that kind of like warbly, kind of watery sound versus like it kind of being clean and recognizing what the melody is. It's just a very interesting genre, and for me, I try to combine it with different genres and it worked. But if you wanted like true vaporwave, you would actually take like a sample like from something from the 80s, drown out the sound kind of, and put your own drums on it, which is like I kick with a crap ton of reverb on it, and a very snappy snare, but with reverb on it.
Right.
Kind of, and it's usually on a 2/4 time with a drum snare, so it's like and something like that. Versus dubstep, which is like something like that.
That more energy like there.
Yeah, it's a little more energy with other genres, but vaporwave is always seems to be on a 2/4 time with a little bit of hi-hats in the background.
Yeah.
It's very simplistic, but it makes it interesting.
Right.
It's a very simple concept. I've had discussions and debates about vaporwave, saying it doesn't really take much. Necessarily, it doesn't, but it depends on how much you want to do to it. If you want to make it your own and not use as much samples, it takes a lot more effort. If you want to use it as a sample track, it's less effort because you don't have to come up with the melodies.
That's a good point.
Have to come up with the drums and a little bit of this mixing. But if you want to do what I did and try to make up your own melodies, it's a little bit more complicated. You got to figure out what it kind of sounds like of the track. So you would listen to a vaporwave track, figure out how that sound is made, what samples they use, and kind of use it, and then you can construct your own based off that track and try to figure out how that sound is made within another synth.
Yeah, using references.
Yeah, using references is a very key tip when it comes to vaporwave.
What would you have like a reference that was like really compelling to you, or like a couple of references that you used to develop this your personal outlook on making vaporwave?
Yo, your mic sound a little bit boomy.
Thank you.
Well, I actually started with the most obvious vaporwave track, which is Macintosh 420. I use that sound, kind of figure out where to start from. You kind of have to have a starting point. And then you start going to different artists like Matt Cross, 82 to 89, where he does a little bit more future funk, but there's a little bit of vaporwave thrown in there, which is kind of cool.
Right.
And then there's another one that I used a lot, which is Cyber Reality. They use a lot of samples from like obscure like game soundtracks and other samples I've never really heard of, and I had to do some research and figure out where that sample came from. And then there's other artists like Banshee, which also uses a bunch of samples, but they kind of make it their own. They actually, one of my favorite ones is Banshee's Ecosystems, where they used they used Donkey Kong, but they put a little bit of Zelda in there, and it made it into this whole different track, which I was like, oh, this is interesting. That's different. I've never heard these two games linking together like that. That's different.
Yeah. There's a lot of subgenres in there. Saji, do you have like a perspective on the on all the, like the vaporwave subgenres?
Honestly, I'm not really sure. I'm still like I didn't even know I didn't even know vaporwave dove this deep,
Oh
but
man.
there's like some examples. I think there was like this one thing I heard a while ago called broken transmission. That was kind of like an
Oh,
interest. It sounded like a pretty much a broken transmission. Like you sample over and over, and just hit over it, and it's like that's pretty cool sound. It made it. I know it was like it's like experimental, but I don't know. And then there's like I only know a handful of like people, but the things I like from I guess the things I like specifically from vaporwave was that Hong Kong Express, which everyone pretty much knows
classic.
that. Yeah, that one was just like just so sonically like rich for me. Like at the point, like I don't know, it kind of and it just like it's like ambient, but it's like it's so it was really loud, so it's kind of hard to go to sleep to it.
Yeah.
Like if you were to put on,
I
but
I know so I know 2814, which is one of the more famous vaporwave acts, is like a combination of Hong Kong Express and Telepath. And
yeah,
I know Telepath and 2814 both make their vaporwave originally, like out of mostly original instrumentation and composition. But I don't know if HKE does. I'm pretty sure HKE does. If Shoji was here, Shoji could absolutely tell us if it's like mostly sample based or original production.
Yeah, I've noticed that most of it that I've listened to, because I have a whole Spotify playlist, which is like future fog, vaporwave, and kind of stuff that kind of blends together, where it has like the '80s vibe to it.
Right.
And I've noticed that most of my vaporwave songs are in there is mostly sample based.
Yeah.
Which is like lo-fi hip hop, how it's sample based
Right.
mostly. But I've heard where they use a sample, but they put their own instruments and own composition on top of that. So where it's their own unique style versus using that plain sample. Like they'll detune the sample or detune and reverb the sample to make it sound a little different. And then they'll put their own composition on top of it.
Yeah, there's that one vaporwave artist that I've seen live once or twice. I forget their name, but at Electronicon 1 in Brooklyn, they actually like played live electric guitar over like vaporwave backing tracks that they had made out of samples. I thought that was very compelling. But between the sample based production and the original production, it's like you can really fool people either way. Like if somebody hasn't heard the sample, you can make them think you made it, or if they hear it and they're like, oh, this is vaporwave, must be sample based, you can trick them and be like, no, that's all original. It could go either way.
Yeah, so it's like there's this one song. I actually got to look it up because I can't remember the name of it on top of my head. But they used a sample from a freaking game that I've only played once when I was a kid, which was the Batman Returns game for the Sega CD.
Oh, by the way, that artist that I mentioned with the guitar, I just looked it up. It's Surfing. So yeah, the Batman sample.
Yeah, the Batman sample with the electric guitar and stuff like that.
Yes.
Man, I don't remember the artist. Spotify, work with me here.
Yeah.
Work. There it is. It's not by like Banshee. I think it's by Cyber Reality. I'm just gonna look up their stupid thing.
That's fine. Keep looking that up.
I just gotta find a stupid sample that way I can get my point across.
Saji, I forget if we asked this, but have you ever made vaporwave before?
I've tried a handful of times.
What was your approach to making vaporwave?
I found that what's that guy's name? JC Frankie. that how to vaporwave video a while ago.
Oh yeah.
JC Frankie, and yeah, it was such a cool video, and it was so inspiring because I just tried to like just loop some samples over and over, and like use some reverb, and I don't know, just put samples on top of samples, and it didn't come out right.
Oh
It
man.
didn't come out as good. But there's like a handful of times I don't know. I should have tried like a lot more because I did listen to a good amount of like future funk. I still listen to future funk, like, but I listen mainly like the old first wave future funk stuff that was like 2015. So like I
Night
gotta
tempo, that kind of thing.
yeah, like the stuff that was like that really kicked it off, and I feel like it was so much content that was like put out in those years that was just like just going through it, just like dang, I'm still going through all that old.
It was in fact a ton of content.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool time, honestly. 2015, 16, like all that stuff. Well, when I first got exposed to it, I'm not really sure if it was before, but what I did was just I think I tried to find some samples. I tried to find some like Pepsi samples online, and I guess my approach of it wasn't that great. I could have probably did it now thinking back with like with better use of understanding of DAWs. I could have probably definitely did a lot better. I feel I can do it a lot better today for sure.
Found it.
But
Cool.
yeah, I just kind of looped some stuff over and over and used reverb and delay.
Mobby found it. What was it?
So it's a song from Cyber Reality called virtualresort.org. And they actually it's very simple, actually. I started listening to a little bit of it, just like a little snippet. Very simple, but they use the track from the Batman game, and they basically add their own drum loop on top of it. But they also did something very simple, which worked, which was use like old Macintosh and Microsoft text-to-speech, whereas like Microsoft Sam.
Oh, damn.
And they typed it into it, but with different versions of Microsoft Sam. You know how Macintosh and Windows both have like the different styles of voice from text-to-speech, where it's like a male, female, British female,
yeah,
that kind of thing.
Siri's got like the same thing.
Yeah, basically it's that, but it's the old school one. But they made it say the same loop over and over, but with the different voices, which kind of gave it a little bit of a flair to it. Because actually,
that like flavor, you were just looking for like references to bring more retro vaporwave flavor into the production.
Yeah, basically,
it doesn't.
Like, if you look
like when you're working with samples like that, I mean, you probably know better than anybody else. Like you can add those kind of flavor samples without really impacting too much of like the composition of the track. It just is such a great tool to have. Like,
yeah, because like for one reason I started doing like lo-fi and stuff like that was because I started running out of ideas for compositions. I couldn't really think of like, I could do a bass and then I could think of a melody, or I started to think of a melody, a bass, and I couldn't figure out a lead. So I was like, I'm going to try to look at samples. And so I just pulled one in that I really liked without drums on it and try to use that as like a melody lead, but kind of tune it and tweak it to where it sounds a little bit different, and then put my own flair on top of that sample. So basically I did all composition around that sample. Basically that sample is my melody and my lead, but I did all the bass, all the drums, and everything like that, like a little ear candy sound to it.
Yeah.
So you kind of make it my own.
It's amazing, like the little inspirations that you can build like an entire work of art around.
Yeah, it's actually really fun too, because you get some really creative ideas. You're like, okay, this sample could use a little bit more to it. Let me try to add this guitar on top of it, or this piano on top of it that's kind of in the same key, and it works and makes it sound different from the original sample, so it kind of sounds like your own work.
Yeah, absolutely. Saji, have you ever like used like a little sample or just like a preset or an instrument, like just like one little component that you were able to expand out like a whole music production around?
Yeah, I use a lot. I do mess around with a lot of presets that I like manipulate. But with sampling, I've done that a handful of times. But you ever like feel like, I don't know? I feel like I still haven't got over the point or got good enough to not feel guilty from using a sample, or like, I don't know, like you ever, I don't know, have you guys ever experienced that, like just like I'm using a sample, oh no. Like,
That's a great question. For me, it was like a whole philosophical journey, and I really once I learned how to use a DAW, it was like, oh, it's fun. Now I get it. And then it was fine. What about you, Mob? Like, did you have...
Honestly, I have the same idea with that, because I'm like, all right, I kind of feel guilty for using the sample. This artist didn't give me really permission to use it. So I kind of was like, oh man, I'm doing copywriting and I'm not being original. And so I kind of delved into it and started kind of researching samples on my own, just kind of give myself an idea of how do people get away with it. And that's where I kind of figured out, so they basically just change it up. They added their own flair on top of it. They take something very simple and make it more complex. And so you're kind of like, okay, this is kind of a cool little idea that you can actually make something very simple. Like, let's say you take, I don't know, kind of like how they did with Macintosh 420.
Right.
How they took, who was the artist who did that? What was her name?
Wasn't Nina Turner?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was, yeah.
That did,
It's Your Move.
It's Your Move.
That's the name of the song. And so basically, if you listen to that and then you listen to the original,
Diana Ross, honestly, I'm sorry, Diana Ross.
Yeah. It's like that track, it's so popular, but they didn't really do that much to it. I'm very surprised that they got away with it. But it's because they detuned it, put a bunch of reverb, and that was basically it. They actually didn't even put that much drums over it. Like, if you listen to that and then the original, there's not much difference. Like, I actually put it in my DAW not too long ago to kind of use that as a sample, and all I did was speed it up, and it's the exact same track as Diana Ross. It's the exact same. All he did was slow it down, put reverb on it. But I was like, I could do more than that.
To be fair to Vectroid, it wasn't just putting reverb. Like, I've heard a lot of Vaporwave tracks that are literally just, you take a track, you put reverb on it, you slow it down, and that's it, which is fine. It's fun. Sometimes it's like a very pleasurable listening experience, whether you know the sample or not.
I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking it, but once you start getting to the producer area, like I said, I just took it back in my DAW, sped it up. It's the exact same track. All they did was add a little bit of drum, add a little bit of reverb, and that was the same exact track, which is cool. Go for it. I don't care.
Also, the chopping and the
the chopping,
and the echo. There was a lot of echoing towards the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely like it was deeper than just putting the reverb on it. The funny thing is that just slowing a track down and putting reverb on it to make a Vaporwave edit, that didn't really become a thing until after Echo Jams, after Vectroid had kind of established classic Vaporwave, quote unquote, which is, by the way, what Shoji wanted us to talk about. Shoji asked us to discuss specifically, Vectroid-esque classic Vaporwave. And actually, I don't know if you two know about this. You can tell me if you've heard this. If you go on the Bandcamp for Floral Shop, it's a tribute to One Tricks Point Never and Echo Jams.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, I actually did know that, but it's just like, it's one of the more simpler Vaporwave, which is not overly, like, it's simpler. It's not adding a bunch of like your own instruments like nowadays, where it's more like Vaporwave became more along the lines of future funk in a way, because start adding like a lot more of their own bass line, a little bit more drum to it.
Yeah.
Where it's more of like a funk thing. Then if you go back and listen to like old school Vaporwave from like the early 2000s or 2010s, I don't know.
2010s.
Yeah, something like that in the 2010s. You start listening to the old school Vaporwave, you're like, oh, there's not as much adding their own instrument. It's basically editing that sample completely and working around it.
It's primarily sample based. And the kind of the art behind manipulating a sample.
Yeah.
I've always liked the idea of like when people like can just make a sound and just make some like fuck it up and all with like a with a mouse, you know?
Yeah,
like, bro, that's so great to me. That's so because I'm like instrument based mainly, but I definitely respect like the DAW, like people who use DAWs as their primary instrument, as like, you know, for sure, like because it takes so much like decision making and like getting used to it, and it's like to see people like take a sample and make something that's like breakcore or like, you know, like, or something that's just wow, you just really, I don't understand any of this right now. This is not even like nowhere near the same sample. No way you can get sued. If you get sued for this, dude, you can probably get sued for anything. Like, cause,
yeah,
like that's the type of, you guys kind of inspiring me because I want to learn how to use samples in a way I can like make it my own, you know.
Oh, I can totally hook you up on that. That is no problem. That's what I do. That's actually what I'm doing right now while I'm talking is working on my next album, which is going to be like a sample bass but with soul and funk tracks.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
And I'm throwing hip hop lo-fi drums over it.
Nice.
So something I wanted to talk about to kind of merge all three of our perspectives in this topic of what artistry is needed to make some compelling classic vaporwave music. One thing that a project that I have I'm just kind of, it's sitting on my shelf right now, is I'm making a vaporwave machine where it's an instrument that anybody can access that allows them to capture the essence of classic vaporwave and like the Vectroid kind of sample chopping and laying on the echo and effects and stuff. I would like to make like a start with a software version, maybe like an Ableton instrument that you could just, if you have Ableton, you can download this instrument, drop in a sample, and then have like hands-on control to manipulate it as much as possible. And then eventually down the line have like a hardware tool, an instrument that you can do the same thing very easily and capture that. And then by putting it into everybody's hands, it can be taken far beyond vaporwave. And in that way, you can kind of do that with tools like, you know, Electron Make Samplers and the Korg Volca, for example, or even if you get like a DJ controller and some DJ software, like it's very easy to make vaporwave music with like a cheap DJ controller and Serato Lite or Record Box, because, you know, that has all the tools that you need to do that and evoke those feelings. But to have like a specialized instrument made specifically for recreating the aesthetic of classic vaporwave, that to me would be like really, really interesting. Like what kind of haptic feedback goes with vaporwave aside from just like, you know, like the tempo fader on like some CDJs, you know?
Like, oh man.
I would really like it to be like the vaporwave machine that I want to create. I'd really like it to be part of the Crystal Keytar. I've got the Crystal Keytar prototype here for the stream. Here it is. When we actually have like a a model that has synthesizer built into it. It'd be crazy to have the Vaporwave machine as one of the presets on here. Mob, what kind of interfaces, like tactile interfaces that don't currently exist, do you think would really go with like Vaporwave, like classic Vaporwave?
For classic Vaporwave, are you talking about like effects, or are you talking about like?
Yeah,
I need a little more clarification.
So like going back to like Vectroid's version of Vaporwave with Macintosh Plus, and all of the stuff that came like immediately after that. So like the speed of the sample, so like manipulating a sample, the speed of the sample, the effects, the texture, like what could you put your hands on to control that? Or like the loops, like creating loops and manipulating loops and chopping like a sample. Obviously there's tools like the MPC, which is very, very famous for chopping loops.
There's also the SP404, which is way famous over chopping loops, which I still want to get my hands on, but it's $500.
And they have that new one out.
Yeah, the MK2, which, oh my god,
looks
that because since I do samples as my music, that's kind of just what I do.
Yeah.
That tool would be very fantastic to actually have in my arsenal. That way I can actually start doing live performances and stuff like that versus just kind of making this thing, uploading it, and let people listen to it. I actually want to start doing live shows like that, but I need a little more gear. Like me, what I have in front of my face right now, I have the launch key, that's what my main synth is. And then I have my MPD 218. That's actually what I use for my drums,
cool.
to write my drums on it.
Nice.
And then I have my launch pad, which I actually don't even use. It's more like an entertainment machine. It's because the one I have was made for Ableton, which I have the Launchpad X, which that one was, quote, made for Ableton, and I use FL Studio. I actually had to reroute it, and I can now get it to work for FL Studio, but it took so much amount of time. But if I was going to use something that would do like effects, it would probably be like an effects rack for Vaporwave. Kind of like, there was a piece of gear I was looking at not too long ago that actually I wanted to get my hands on. It was an Ovation because I actually really like their gear. It's very solid, very easy to use. There's not much to it, and it's like what's it? Like actual full blown synthesizers and synthesizer racks. That is too much for me to handle.
Right.
Since I only work with samples.
Let me throw that question to Saji too. Saji, is there any like tactile interface that you can envision being very conducive to Vaporwave, like aside from MPC, which is, a tried and true instrument?
Oh, that's pretty cool that you mentioned this. I like how like these questions are kind of pointing at like the theory side and like the more practical side. So I thought of this one just now as you asked me. Let me see. I'm looking it up right now. Tasty Chips, GR1 Tasty Chips. I feel like that would be really cool to make Vaporwave with, because it's like a hardware granular synth. So I'm thinking that like you can probably make big grains that gives it like a lo-fi and add like reverb and all that stuff to it. And you have like the analog warm stuff, the actual synth. So I think it would be pretty cool to make Vaporwave stuff out of.
I don't think I've ever seen the GR1, which is surprising because I'm usually on top of all of the synthesizers out there.
Yeah, because I always figured that like maybe it's just me. I haven't figured out how to use my Mac to its full potential, but I've always had like I'd had problems with using granular synths on my computer.
Mhm.
So I was like, you know what, is there like a real like actual like digital, like or like synth granular synth? And yeah, there's.
Yeah, the GR1. Yeah, I remember seeing this not so long ago. It's very expensive, but it's something that I can totally see other people using. Not me personally, but that is really cool.
Yeah, let me
the
show.
one I was kind of looking at.
I want to show a picture on this stream real quick. Let me. I gotta select it. The what's it called again, Saji?
GR1.
Tasty Chips GR1.
Tasty Chips GR1. Let me just select it. Shout out to NDI and the free NDI tools. Google Chrome 2. Okay, so now if I switch.
Remember that. But yeah, after you show this, I could explain one of the other pieces of gear I really want to have in my arsenal.
Yes, I want to hear that. Let me just show the Chrome window. Google Chrome. I selected the wrong one. So
Good
now
job.
if I switch. Oh, there we go. Okay. So it's really interesting because it looks like that big fader right in the middle can be used to like either actually drag the playhead of the sample or set in and out points. Me personally, like if I wanted to like have the most tactile control over a sample, a digital sample, I would want it to be better than a vinyl record, because on a vinyl record you can get your hands all up in it and like spin it around, slow it down, then you can move the needle, but you can't really like see where it's going to go or know exactly what it's going to do. So I would think like the virtual version of that should have more tactile feedback and more control over it than what you can do on like what a turntablist could do, because they were using turntablists. They were using technology that was available to them then. How can we evolve that? And this is like a very compelling, desktop form factor for that. So that's very interesting to me. I also want to shout out let me try and pull it up before we go back to Mob's gear list. So Teenage Engineering made a boombox. And what they basically did was they kind of took like the concept of like a tape player boombox and turned it into like a modern instrument. Let me move it to my other Chrome window so everybody can see on the stream. I got a streamline. Yeah, you can record loops and stuff with this. Let me click on this. Make it bigger. So aside from this boombox being able to like record the radio that's like coming into it, but also this little knob right here that says tape, it's spinning like a cassette tape would, or like a reel-to-reel or a turntable. It's spinning. So you can actually touch it and feel it spinning, and you can stop it from spinning, or you can speed it up or slow it down or reverse, like rewind, just by like touching that little tape knob. It's a motorized mechanical knob that lets you manipulate like the radio or the aux input that's going into it. I think that's really compelling. I think if you had that, if you had like a turntable, like a mechanical digital turntable, and then like a needle drop strip that you see on like the last generation of DJ controllers, the needle drop strip. It's on Denon modern Denon stuff too, so that you could pick like the exact point and you could loop just by like touching. I think that'd be awesome. Especially if you had like a stack of touch strips. So it's not just like one touch strip that represents the entire length of the song, but maybe it's like a bunch of touch strips in like a small like rectangle area of the gear that the instrument that we're talking about. That would represent like, this is the first quarter of the song, this is the second quarter of the song, and you can quote unquote drop the needle just by touching a place. And the longer the more length of needle drop touch strip that you have, the more precise you can be about performing the needle drops. Because if it's a tiny touch strip, one touch or like a bunch of touches could be not as exact as you want it to be. Anyway, I'm just nerding out about gear stuff. Oh yeah. That I think based on the form factor and that big screen and like all of the knobs and stuff, while it's probably like a very, very strong production instrument, like I could see myself performing with that as like the primary instrument. But I'm very like creatively minded when it comes to gear. You know, I used, for example, I used this Reloop MIDI controller mixer. I got it for one reason, and now I use it for like a completely different thing. Same thing with this, the MIDI Fighter 64. I love this thing. It's fun. You could get them on sale, I think, right now. Or you could make one yourself. Just buy the Sanwa buttons and like an Arduino. And then obviously the current prototype of the Crystal Keytar is literally just 2 MIDI controllers and a USB webcam that I hacked together into this Frankenstein thing. So I never see a piece of gear and I go like, what did they make this for? I look at a piece of gear and I say like, what could I possibly use this for that would scare people? Bob, what's the gear that you want? What's a 218? Oh, tell me how to find it online because I don't have the the Discord getting captured in OBS right now. Oh, it's the Akai. So for the stream, here's the Akai controller that we're talking about, the MPD 218. And then you were saying the native instruments. And what's the what model do you have? Oh, which one? Oh yeah, let me pull that up. Show the people. It's purple. All right. Which is more like it's like a combination of like a push and a MPC.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I really want one of those. Like those two pieces of gear, that's what I actually would want as a really good piece of gear I can take on the go, or actually do some live performances with.
Right.
Just because you can sample and then put the effects on it while performing.
I should really learn how to, because I'm well familiar with how like MIDI pitch bend works, which is a big component of the Crystal Keytar. But I should really learn how like DJ controllers or how like DJ controllers and DJ softwares, what protocol they use for like the needle drop function. Because the Crystal Keytar is like, it's a keyboard and a really big touch strip. So that'd be really interesting to be able to like change the preset on the Keytar and turn it from pitch bend to needle drop. Anyway.
I'm just looking at gear.
Yeah, now we're all just thinking about gear. So, we've been recording for a little while. We've been streaming live on Twitch. Shout out to all of our Twitch viewers. Shout out to everybody in Aquatic Squad. Before we wrap it up for the night, I just wanted to shout out the new members of the Aquatic Squad Discord. We had some new people join in the last week, and I always record a little welcome video for everybody. And I thought, what better an opportunity to shout out all the new members than right here in the weekly squad sesh. So I really want to shout out these guys: Blue Z GTI, Architect, Tiny Clay, Rat Knight, Rat Lore Master, and the Rat Father. Thank you guys for joining the Aquatic Squad Discord server. I can't wait to hang out with you guys. I did get to have a good couple chats with Blue Z GTI. They're a rad person, so shout out to all you guys. Saji and Mob, I'll give you guys the final word for this weekly squad sesh.
Support your local artists. Hey, yeah, there you go.
Don't let your dreams be memes.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Later.
See you guys.